Hello everyone, welcome back to FPL Fran. Today's video is going to be the Game Week 34 team selection as we look ahead towards a pretty major double game week and a week where of course the competition will be free hitting. I will be trying to pretend like Game Week 34 doesn't exist, and the way we're doing this is by effectively doing a side grade of a transfer. I'll talk about that transfer in a moment. One of the biggest piece of news that we got really from the European fixtures though is that Haaland did ask Pep Guardiola to sub him off, and the impact of that is maybe of course in 8 days time when City play Brighton, maybe it's the case that Haaland won't be able to feature. But keep in mind of course that we should hopefully get some information before the deadline on Game Week 34, but not only that, we will also have a Saturday match between Man City and Chelsea. So I think in that match, it's very likely if Haaland is, let's say, unfit, he'll probably just miss that match and he'll get rested, hopefully enough and in time for this Brighton fixture. So that's a key piece of news that we got this week in Game Week 34. In terms of Game Week 33, though, my team did relatively well. We got 80 points, so finally a good green arrow after, of course, last week with the calamity of... The great irony, of course, is that in Game Week 32, we got a huge red arrow because we decided to bench our Arsenal players away from home, whereas now they were at home in Game Week 33, and the result was awful for our Arsenal players. And instead, the bench that I had, Gusto and Pau, players that, for example, I would have generally considered playing over Arsenal players in the week previous, did really well, got their clean sheets, and that's life in FPL. And Saka, of course, blanked despite playing 90 minutes of football. So that happens in FPL, and you just got to move on. Fortunately, though, we were saved by the heroics of Flecken and Guardiola. Guardiola just... 2 games in a row scoring a right-footed finesse shot basically on the edge of the box. Incredible. This time, though, I think with Guardiola, you are starting to see that he is slowly moving into these attacking pockets. And of course, he's building his confidence there. Are his underlying stats incredible for a fullback? Would we say that he's one of the leading attacking fullbacks in the league? Absolutely not. But I think that if you, for example, cast your mind back to, the way Zinchenko plays for this Arsenal team, for example, how easy it is for him to get bonus points. There are going to be a lot of games and chances for Guardiola to get onto bonus points, and he still remains to be a very good pick. And I think he's played so well that even with Ake coming back, I don't really see Guardiola's minutes being that contested. Maybe, of course, he gets rested, and I think the best chance to rest him really would be, once again, this FA Cup match, because Ake is back, and you can hopefully have Guardiola coming back for the Brighton fixture. Elsewhere in my team, Liverpool continued to be pretty poor. They were very dull, of course, when it came to Game Week 33. But not only that, you saw the European fixtures with Atalanta in between that game. The second leg where they were trying to chase versus Atalanta, I feel like the goal that they scored might have been a little bit deceptive, because that actually came from a schoolboy mistake in the sense that there was a handball, but Liverpool only really had one significant chance with Salah in open play, and they haven't scored in around 350 minutes of open play, which is ridiculous for Liverpool standards. And for the team that we actually can decisively say has been the best attack over the Premier League for the course of the season, they are definitely hitting a certain patch of poor form. And not only is it just the defense, conceding early in games, but also the offense, right? Just not creating enough open chances. And you're starting to see, of course, a lot of players, despite 5 attackers being ready and available for Liverpool, that no one is really bringing the goods to the table. Darwin has played poorly recently. Salah hasn't taken his chances, and Luis Diaz is also being subbed off. Maybe he's also hit a wall in terms of how many minutes he's played, and clearly he needs more rest than he does. Trent is back in the team, though, so that's a nice little positive there. But with Son, of course, he continues to be dismaying, and Muniz, of course, on my bench. I think the underlying stats for Muniz continue to be very strong, and the fact that he continues to start means that I have some hopes for him in Game Week 34. But that was really the week, right? Solanke did well, but a lot of people do own him, and Haaland captaincy, it was nothing short of the Palmer captaincy, which was extraordinary if you went there. I definitely wasn't thinking about Palmer captaincy, so hats off to you managers who took that risk. I remember someone in the YouTube comments last week went Palmer captaincy, and I was stunned as the goals kept flowing in, and I was thinking, I already did quite well to get the Haaland captaincy over Salah, but that's life, and we move on. So Game Week 34, what's the situation here? Once again, the theme of my videos this week, and the theme of Game Week 34, in my opinion, is what kind of manager are you in FPL, and also, so what strategy are you leaning towards? I think from my point of view, I have a bench boost left, and my plan is to play Game Week 37. I don't have any additional hits. A lot of people will be free hitting. I think this is a week where I understandably know that I'm going to have a red arrow, because I would say the quality of my team is probably 5 to 10, maybe 15 points worse than some of the best teams around. And that's okay in FPL. You're not going to have the best team every week. So I think I have an opportunity here to set my team up more passively towards, making a strong team for Game Week 35 and beyond. Or, of course, I take the opportunity to gamble on some of these doublers and see it as an opportunity to attack with a lot of hits, because the sort of foolproofness of the double game weeks usually is that the more double game week players you get, it's effectively an additional fixture and an additional chance to punt on certain players, right? So in some cases, particularly when we have really, really great attackers available within this free hit, Crystal Palace attackers, in my opinion, yes, it's 2 home games. Yes, Crystal Palace are 14th in the league table, but they still have an amazing fixture. And in my opinion, someone like Eze is potentially worth a hit this week. So it just comes down to whether you want to take that hit and how that will shape or change your team going forwards. The way I see it, though, is I still think that my team is okay in terms of, I think that I can field out 11 players that have decent games who are at least playing at home or at least Cole Palmer, and I can just move on from this game week and sort of reassess. Now, I will talk about a situation where I will change my transfer plans if Haaland is, let's say, out, for example. But I think for now, I'm going to be planning in a way where I'm assuming that there are no additional injuries. And on the press conferences, of course, we get the go-ahead for most players. I think the concern, obviously, for Liverpool and Arsenal is that they've played a lot of fixtures. When you look at other teams, of course, just simply not as strong. So maybe the doubles you could arguably say are weaker compared to, let's say, the United single game week fixture or the Aston Villa single game week fixture. But I think that it's a chance for targeting Crystal Palace, in my opinion, either on defense with someone like Munoz or Mitchell, or even on attack with someone like Eze, or even in the forward position like with Mateta. With your Wolves players, they're also interesting too, because if you go for someone like Cunha, you have Luton at home in Game Week 35. So I think, in terms of short-term value, you still get that from your Wolves transfers. Now, with Liverpool, I think that the declining minutes from these players mean that I probably don't want to invest more into Liverpool. Trent's already gotten basically a start within this Atalanta fixture, and I'm basically asking Trent to play 2 more fixtures after coming back from injury. I think that's a little bit rich. With Robertson, Tsimikas really hasn't gotten many minutes recently, and part of that is because he's played really poorly. So maybe the case is that with Robertson getting a little bit of rest, I think Robertson is that sort of upside chasing gamble that a lot of people can think about. Right now, of course, I'm not feeling hit hungry, so I'm going to show you guys my transfers as if I was going to make 1 transfer this week and 1 transfer alone. So this week, we're going to be fielding Neto, and Neto for me is someone who, of course, we plan to have hopefully one of the double game weeks with Neto. Ultimately, he was either going to be our Game Week 37 bench boost keeper or someone who, had a double this week. Instead, he's had the double here. Not great fixtures, to be honest, but whenever we look at fixtures like this and you're away from home twice, I think a goalkeeper always stands to benefit just a little bit more if the clean sheet odds are low, because when the clean sheet odds are low, you're usually anticipating, of course, more saves made, things like that. I think Flecken versus Man City is always the quintessential example that I've used this season, or even Kaminsky, for example, when Luton were facing Man City. So that for me is a nice double game week fixture from the context of the goalkeeper. Would I be interested in a Kirkes within a Zabani? Not really this week. In the other defensive positions, we're going with double Arsenal defense. We've kept them for a long time now from the wild card. Saliba and Gabriel are the go-to players here. Ultimately, Arsenal will only be fighting for this Premier League title, and I can't really see Saliba and Gabriel missing fixtures. They're still key to the side. Great set-piece threats. Yes, they're not White in the sense, but I don't have the opportunity to move there. I think White is still a great differential, but yeah, really happy about double Arsenal defense. In terms of my actual defender, I will be going with Guardiola, but my free transfer will actually be used on a player who's going to sit on my bench. I'm going to move Pau Torres, who also has a good fixture versus Bournemouth, but I have Solanke, so I don't really want to hedge my bets like that. So the way I'm doing it is I'm going Dan Burn in, who has Crystal Palace away, and I would actually much rather have Guardiola. And the reason why I would like Guardiola is because I still think that he'll play the Brighton fixture. I think Brighton attack has looked pretty poor as of late. And with Man City as well, also getting knocked out of the Champions League, their focus is fully towards the Premier League. I can see Guardiola easily being within that starting 11 for City versus Brighton when the time comes. And I would like to take that chance. For me, he's a very intriguing player. And once again, both my defenders technically who have good fixtures, or all 3 of them, including Gusto, have, easier fixtures, but at least they're away from home. So it's not exactly great. But Guardiola, of course, whenever you're sort of hedging your bets with a Man City defender, it's always nice to know that you're situating yourself with a top 2 defense within the league. As far as the midfield for this week, we're going to stick with Saka, Luis Diaz, and Salah. Palmer, of course, is going to sit within the team because I'm taking this passive approach. So the whole point of this strategy here is that I've got two free transfers actually. I'm deciding to use one, and that one free transfer is basically to set my team up for Game Week 35, where Newcastle will face Sheffield United at home. But not only that, to set my team up for Game Week 37 bench boost, most importantly. And either I take the priority here in Game Week 34, where I think, I go for Munoz, or I go for someone like, once again, Mikolenko or Tarkowski. But I'm leaning more towards, if I was to take a little bit more of a gamble on, let's say, a defender in the short term, I think Mitchell or Munoz are the options that I would much rather go to in the short term, because I'm a little bit higher now in Crystal Palace on their defense. I'm also higher on the attacking strength of their fullbacks compared to, let's say, a Mikolenko, where when you look at the underlying stats, it just doesn't really favor him too much. He has scored some goals this season, but they have been long shots too, and it's not like he consistently provides routes towards scoring goals or even getting assists. So I do like either the punt, and do let me know, of course, in the comment section too, whether you prefer a Burn or a Munoz or a Mitchell, because that's something I'm deciding between. It's either the double in Game Week 37 or the double in Game Week 34, and something to think about then and now. In the midfield, though, just going back to it, with Luis Diaz, I think the concern with Salah as well is the minutes with Liverpool. You're starting to see 65-minute substitutions, 68-minute substitutions, and it's very consistent because they've got 5 attackers. And Liverpool, I think, are constantly trying a couple new things, right? You're seeing the substitutions because clearly what the starting 11 have been putting out in recent matches has just been poor. And it's not to say that Luis Diaz in specific has been poor, that Darwin has been poor, that Salah has been poor, or Gakpo, for example, who started versus Atalanta today, has been poor. It's just that nothing has really been apparent to Liverpool in terms of how they should set up to do better. And for me, that puts the Liverpool attackers in a little bit more of a worse territory for me. Some people might even be considering, let's say, going for an Alisson plus a Robertson plus a Salah, because you at least know that these players are most likely going to play the 6 fixtures. You can't necessarily guarantee that now with Luis Diaz and Darwin. So something to think about. As far as Palmer, though, my only hope here is that Arsenal are quote-unquote leggy. The reality is they won't be. They're going to be at home versus Chelsea. This is still the best defense in the league. Nothing for me has changed. Of course, sure, there's going to be some emotional damage from the Champions League, but they play Wolves first anyways. Chelsea will also play the FA Cup. They'll have impacts there. But Palmer has just been incredible this season. Do I really regret playing him versus Arsenal? In the sense that a lot of people have someone like Eze, absolutely. But in the context of Palmer being Palmer, no. As far as the forwards this week, we'll be fielding Solanke, Haaland, and Muniz. Solanke obviously with a double. Haaland expecting that he'll play because, once again, 8 weeks or 8 days of rest, not 8 weeks. But we'll have to see whether we get a sufficient update over Man City and their team before we sort of make our move on the defender position. Because right now, I think, very put simply, if Haaland is out, my plan is very much so to just play the transfer this way. Haaland to Isak and call it a day there. So the same sort of side grade sort of move that I would make, the way I'd be putting Dan Burn first on my bench, I think I have an opportunity here to simply just play Isak instead. Treat him as basically my Haaland replacement. Yes, of course, Watkins has a better single game week fixture. Yes, of course, Mateta has a double. Yes, of course, Cunha has a double. But setting my team up for the next few game weeks, and not just specifically the bench boost, but game week 35, such a good fixture. I don't really want to miss out on Isak. So if I have the opportunity to get into Isak on game week 34, I think I'll just take that chance, given that there are not too many appetizing forwards that are going to be helpful for me beyond game week 34. I know, of course, Cunha has a great game week 35 fixture as well, but then it's just the case of, can I move my team back into Isak? Maybe not. And I think that's that's why I had to take a little bit more of a passive and medium-term move there. So with the last player within my team, it's going to be Muniz. Liverpool have flattered to deceive recently. Fulham have played well at home. Muniz has actually still continued to build up a lot of chances. Is this the game that he finally scores after, blanking the last few weeks? Hopefully. I'm in the position where I obviously need a little bit more luck than other managers this week. I have a weaker team, and I completely acknowledge that. But coming out of this, I think with 2 free transfers for Game Week 35, I think I can definitely rectify whatever damage I can take in Game Week 34. And I'm totally happy to concede a big fat red arrow this week so that the health of my team going forwards is going to be relatively decent. And that's it, really. On the bench, we're going to have Flecken. He still has a good game if suddenly Neto gets deposed here. Pau Torres, depending on, of course, whether I do the Haaland transfer or, let's say, the Pau Torres transfer. Pau Torres would obviously be Burn in the situation. And first bench, of course, within my team. Gusto, Arsenal don't want to play him. And Son, obviously blanking, not going to play him at all. So that's the Game Week 34 team selection. Once again, if you watch my transfer plans video, I was generally considering, whether I make more aggressive moves, whether I go for things like Son to Eze, Muniz to another forward, or maybe let's say if Haaland is out, that would spell the sign for maybe more attacking transfers. Maybe I can go out of Haaland and also potentially out of someone like Pau Torres as well. Go for a Liverpool attacker, someone who's a little bit more expensive, like a Robertson, like a Trent Alexander-Arnold. But I still think that it's not that interesting or intriguing to me. Or I go out of Muniz as well this week. So I go out of Haaland and then I go into Darwin as well alongside Isak. Is that interesting to me? Not really, because I still think that I'm saving some room for Jackson and Isak to be within my team. So I'd rather make those moves next week. I don't need to go into Darwin so that I go out of Darwin again. I already kind of have a problem, quote unquote, within my team with Luis Diaz and Salah, and we'll continue to monitor Liverpool as we go forwards for the rest of the season. But that's really it for this week, taking a passive approach. Captaincy, I have to say, it's a tough one. In my opinion, I think if I was a manager with Eze, I feel like his minutes would be the most secure, and I think he's got the funnest fixtures, and I would generally consider captaining Eze if I was put in that situation. But assuming that, of course, someone like Salah is going to maybe play 68 minutes one game, 90 minutes one game, I still think that he's the most logical choice. Then it's Saka. Maybe potentially you would like to go for another Arsenal midfielder because, of course, we continue to see Saka limping and so on and so forth. So you can, of course, tempt yourself with, let's say, a Havertz captaincy and Odegaard captaincy as well. Another safe pick, in my opinion, would be Solanke, right? Because if let's say you don't think that, or you don't own Eze, for example, but you own Solanke, I do think that he's one of those calls. If you want to go outside of Liverpool and Arsenal, you don't really trust their form, quote unquote, you can go for, in my opinion, an Eze or Solanke, players that we think are on penalties, players that we think will play really good minutes and ultimately have good enough fixtures to be considered captaincy options just because they double. And that's pretty much my thoughts on captaincy this week as well, and overall with the team selection. I hope you guys have a wonderful week ahead. Good luck with your game week 34, whether you're free hitting or whether you're taking a passive approach like me or taking hits galore so that you can maximize your team for this week, all the same. So take care and goodbye, and I'll see you soon.